Hey there, I'm Lee Ullman here with some big news from the National Young Farmers Coalition. We're partnering with Heritage Radio Network on a special season of The Farm Report. It's all about what's happening with the Farm Bill and how it impacts farmers and eaters.
I am growing diversified vegetables on land that's been in our family for 150 years.
And so with the pandemic, gentrification, property values going up, we had to sell the land and we lost it.
Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind this massive piece of legislation that shapes how we grow our food, what we eat, and so much more.
The problems we have had, those are things that come from earlier Farm Bill and USDA policy, right? Like Earl Butz, get big or get out.
You know, it's my responsibility to know not only what I'm eating, but then like how that all came to be. And realize like, wow, like this piece of legislation, all this money, like it's technically something that I support as a taxpayer.
While Congress debates the next Farm Bill, this is not just an invitation to listen. It's a call to action. Be part of the conversation. Subscribe to the Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network, wherever you listen to podcasts.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. Since 2009, HRN podcasts have been exploring the wide world of food, beverage, and agriculture. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
This episode is brought to you by GigPro, the staffing solution for businesses and workers in the hospitality industry. Check out gigpro.com and download the GigPro app today.
So you don't charm the devil with your rock and roll load. Knows that country music's gonna save your soul. The devil finds his groove in that rhythm and blues that sound. It's gonna get you sun in the air.
Welcome back to the Speakeasy. I'm Souther Teague.
And I'm Greg Benson.
Greg, it's just the two of us today.
I know. Damon is making his way through the beautiful countryside of California, and we wish him well. But we had an interesting development here in New York. I don't know if you're aware of this, Souther, but apparently, according to the Top Pizza Council, the special secret Illuminati 50 Top Pizza, that was what it was called. I couldn't remember. It was, you know, some secret shadowy pizza organization. There was a restaurant in New York City that was rated the best pizza in the world recently.
In the world.
It beat out a bunch of places in Italy and France.
It seems to stand to reason. We're a well-known city for making and eating pizza.
Of course, yeah, exactly. We love pizza here, but I have some beef with this place, and it's not the beef that I think you might expect.
I wouldn't assume you'd bring it up if you didn't have some beef.
The place, it's called Una Pizza Napoletana, and it is
sounds delightful.
It does sound delightful, and it looks really good. But my issue has nothing to do with the construction of the pies itself. My issue is the fact that this place is only open 3 days a week, and I personally feel that if in my city there is the best pizza in the world, I should be able to get it on a random Tuesday when I pop in. I feel like I shouldn't have to make a reservation a month in advance to eat pizza. That feels like a needless pretentification of the people's dish that I don't necessarily. I'm not on board for that. Your pizza might be fantastic, but share it with people and let everybody have it and make it so that it's not just, you know, for people who come here just for that. Because to me, being only open 3 days a week and requiring reservations to eat your pizza, you're a tourist spot. I'm sorry. I just got to come out and say it.
You think they've undemocratized the pizza?
I do. And because, as you were saying, like, you know, we're New York, we're very much a pizza city, but it is a dish that I think, you know, we as New Yorkers are used to being able to like grab and go. And sure, there are more upscale pizzas, like, you know, like Roberta's, a place that's very near and dear to our heart that I used to be able to go to once a week. And I don't anymore. Thanks a lot, virus. But, you know, even that spot had like a really great to-go counter where you could roll up and just grab a pie to go. And you could do that most days of the week. I honestly can't remember off the top of my head if they were open 7 days a week. I'll be honest. I can't remember a lot of things that happen at Roberta's, but you know, it seems, something about it feels wrong. It feels wrong, Souther, and I don't like it.
Well, I would argue, as you know, I will, that pizza in New York has slid off its mantle in the past decade or so, regardless, due to the massive influx of dollar slice joints. And, the jokes, of course, abound. I always say, you know what they say about dollar pizza? That's not cheese. So, I think when the dollar slice became so popular, so many of them opened, that the places that weren't dollar slice couldn't compete with, subpar cheeses and sauces, etc. So everyone had to kind of dumb down. I feel like the democratization of pizza in New York made it worse, right? We're known for this thing, and suddenly we're all willing to accept it being subpar at best.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, first of all, one interesting thing we should talk about is that pizza is now the bucket slice now costs you about $5, so it's past the $5 mark. So that's a whole other kettle of fish that you could potentially put on a pizza.
Of the folks coming into the market with a quality product and willing to charge people for it and willing to bear the brunt of getting snide looks from folks who expect a dollar slice. But
no, absolutely.
Like it's rebounding, I guess. We're coming around the bend again.
I guess what I'm saying is I enjoy that there's a sliding scale of pizzas. It's like when I buy a dollar slice, I know what I'm getting. Like when I buy a ticket to ride on the megabus, I know what I'm getting. When I buy a Bud Light Lime-A-Rita and save the receipt so that I can get my $20 check from Anheuser-Busch, I know what I'm getting. All right. Like I'm not going to walk into a dollar slice spot and walk away and go on Yelp and be like, they told me they didn't have Sopressata, 1 star. But I do think that for the places that put themselves up as, the best pizza on earth, literally, I think that there should be more opportunities for people to get it. I think even places that are like, super fine dining should be open more than 3 days a week. I'm not down with this whole like, oh, it's the best in the world and you can't get in na thing. It doesn't work for me. Not for foie gras, but especially not for the people's meal, especially not for pizza. It rubs me the wrong way. That being said, everybody's having staffing issues. Maybe this is not a choice that they've made on their behalf. So if this is true, and if they listen to the show, and if they haven't already turned off this episode and unsubscribed from the podcast because I've been talking shit on them for the last 5 minutes, I would say open, hire some more folks. Be open on Tuesday. I'll come by. You open up on Tuesday, I'll come by. I'll Instagram it. I'll tweet it. My dozens of followers will see it and give you a little bit more business for the best pizza shop on planet freaking Earth.
Yeah, well, I think I'm going to seek the place out and make a reservation. I
think they have some spots open in January.
I'm now interested to see and taste the best pizza in the world. I do want to touch just briefly on the fact that I sound a little rough today because I had many drinks last night at the Liquor.com awards ceremony that was held here in New York City. The first time they've ever done an awards kind of thing. There was no actual ceremony. It was a big party. It was great. They didn't have a ceremony. They wrote up a gigantic article and they listed off categories and they delved into over 500 bars across the country, and each of them was mentioned in the longest part of the article. So it's a great compendium of bars to look at. And they created categories just similar to the ones at Tales of the Cocktail, and they passed out those awards, and several of those people traveled all the way to New York last night. So Kate Gerwin's bar, Happy Accidents, was best new American bar, just like it was at Tales of the Cocktail. She brought her entire team, everyone, because she's just that kind of badass. And they set up a pop-up bar, Basic, right here in New York City, won for best neighborhood cocktail bar, or not even cocktail, best neighborhood bar, which is a huge nod to them. They've been around for about 10 years now, and it's an adorable spot that I've been to several times.
Yeah, lovable. Infinitely lovable spot.
Yeah. They gave some award to recent guest Josh Davis from Brown and Balanced for community building. Dale DeGroff they honored with some sort of lifetime achievement situation. And the event was held at Crown Shy. I don't know if you've been there, but it's Crown Shy, Saga, and Overstory all in a gigantic building at 70 Pine. And they put Dale all the way up in Overstory, which only holds about 25, 30 people. They put a big, beautiful neon sign up there that said Rainbow Room. Dale and Leo were behind the bar, both wearing the jackets that they used to wear from the Rainbow Room and making drinks from the Rainbow Room's menu. It was charming. Dale sang a few tunes and then took us out on the 360-degree balcony overlooking all of New York City. It was quite a high time, literally and figuratively, and congratulations to all the winners. My good friend Jamie Boudreau won for World's Best Spirit Selection and beat out, of course, Amoria Margot. We were the runner-up in that category, so didn't take anything home myself, but happy to see everyone doing so well all over the place. So it was great. It was a real good time.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And I mean, we're on the speakeasy. We used to keep runnering up. It feels good at this point. It feels like home.
That's
but
right.
Yeah, congratulations. Congratulations to everybody on that list. I mean, everyone that you mentioned is deserving of all of the accolades that they have and will receive in the future, because they're all amazing people doing amazing things and building great communities, like bringing your whole team to the ceremony. What a badass move. And everything,
everyone, all the way down to like the dishwasher, everyone.
Yeah, and everything that Josh does is incredible and really only helps to make the industry better. So congrats to them. And sounds like a well-deserved hangover, Souther.
Yeah, well, I'm not hungover as much as I am just exhausted,
just a little beat up.
Yeah. So let's get to the studio. Who's in the virtual studio with us today?
In the virtual studio with us, you might hear a little bit of buzzing in the background. That's because it's Bee's Knees week. And joining us in the studio, we have Sam Nellis from Bar Hill. Sam, how you doing, man?
Good. Coming to you live here from Montpelier, Vermont.
How is Montpelier, Vermont today?
Montpelier, Vermont today is a little rainy, slightly cold.
Sounds about right.
Sounds typical. I lived up there for 2 years, and that's the viewpoint that I remember. Everything's very green, but it's kind of cold and a little wet all the time.
It also happens to be the smallest state capital in the country and the only one without a McDonald's.
That's right. I remember that as well. Only 8,000 residents when I lived there, and a city ordinance against fast food in general, right? No McDonald's, no Subway, none of those guys.
That does sound very on brand for the capital of Vermont. Bernie would be proud.
Pretty much. I think he is.
So Sam, you were the mixological wizard of Bar Hill. So tell me, first of all, how did you wind up acquiring your magical powers and in this job in general?
Sure. I mean, I come from the bartending world, bar managing world, and I was opening up a big spot in a beautiful mill in Burlington, Vermont, or in Winooski, actually, right next to Burlington. And I was doing, things that cocktail bartenders do, and I was working a lot with Bar Hill for a couple of years, and eventually I was looking to just make a change, and Bar Hill was at the top of my list in terms of local companies to work for, because even at the time, 4 years ago, they were doing so well outside of the state, so I saw a lot of opportunity for the growth of the company. And it's nice to see that, we're doing really well locally. Obviously, we're actually the number one selling gin in Vermont, even more than the big name brands and everything. And so Bar Hill is in a tiny little distillery, about 7,000 square feet up in the Northeast Kingdom, and they purchased a plot of land in the heart of Montpelier, Vermont, and about 26,000 square feet building they built, from nothing. And obviously they were mostly focused on the distillery portion, making sure that was all, correct and ready. And they had an area for the hospitality program that was just kind of left blank. It was a room, but they hadn't been working with the architects or anyone for that yet. And so they wanted someone to come in and help design it. So it was a really amazing opportunity. I got to come in and literally draw on graph paper with the architects some ideas. We ended up with a half hexagon shaped bar in the room with some local granite that's harvested basically just down the street. And designed that whole bar program, the physical bar and the program. So really introducing cocktail culture to this region. Unlike a brewery or a winery, most of our products are consumed in cocktails, and so it was really important to us that we had that at our spot instead of just doing just tastings. Like a tasting room, we wanted to create a whole scene basically with food and drinks and even beer and wine, and a restaurant basically. And it's been really awesome. The community is really happy about it here. It's really kind of a hub for education. We do tons of cocktail classes and spirit education classes, and behind the scenes distillery tours. And come this time of year, we're doing a lot of education around the bees and how important they are to agriculture in general. It's about 1 in 3 bites of food that we eat at a restaurant require bees for pollination. So very important little creatures for our entire agricultural system.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
and
and
not just
the gin. Sorry, the gin itself is made from honey, right?
Yeah, so we were founded by a beekeeper about 10 years ago who was really passionate about using raw honey in everything he was doing. So raw honey, has never been heated over 95 degrees. It's not filtered. It's not fined. It's nothing added, nothing taken away. And eventually wanted to get into the beverage industry with his raw honey idea, and partnered with a distiller who's now the president of the company, Ryan Christensen, and head distiller, to make some products. And so we have a vodka that's distilled 100% from honey. So, no sugars from wheat or potatoes or anything like that. It's purely sugar from honey that's fermented into a mead, and then we distill that. It's to distill vodka, you have to follow some rules. You have to go up to 195 proof. You have to distill it twice, and technically you have to filter it. Obviously, a lot of other vodka producers are kind of boasting about how much they're distilling it, 12 times distilled and filtered through diamonds or whatever. We're quite the opposite. We're trying to, we literally only distill twice, and we do a very minimal filtration because we're trying to preserve that amazing premium agricultural raw honey flavor. So the vodka actually comes out retaining some flavor of the original agricultural ingredient. And then the gin, of course, the raw honey is all collected from 250 miles from around our location. So we like to think of honey as like the ultimate form of terroir in a lot of ways, right? The bees can only go so far from their hive, and they can only harvest literally what's around them. And so we use that honey a little bit like our botanical blend in the gin. So the gin, we're actually just distilling with juniper berry, and then we're finishing it with a little bit of raw honey. So it's technically making kind of an Old Tom style gin because it has some sweetener added afterwards, but it's really a single digit percentage of honey, not really to make too sweet or too much of a honey flavored gin, but to more have those 150 wildflowers that the bees collect to come through as botanicals. So in a way it's one botanical, juniper, but then with the raw honey, we kind of use the saying countless botanicals because it's hard to know almost.
Sure. I mean, we can all understand that when you have clover honey, you can taste the clover. When you have blueberry honey, that the bees are pollinating blueberries, you can taste blueberries in the honey. There's a great example of that on my bar, which is Del Air Barista. One of my favorite Amari is honey sweetened, and the bees are pollinating the gentian flower, which is the bittering agent. So the honey itself, when isolated, is bitter. So it's a bitter honey. So I can see where, what's the word? What's the term used? Undisclosed number of, incalculable number of botanicals.
Yes, countless. You're confusing me. I forgot. Countless botanicals.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and that's kind of the beauty of using the bees to do this, is that they're these amazing, very industrious little critters, and they're have very famously in the press been having a rough go of it these last few years. So talk to me a little bit about that and what you at Caledonia Spirits are looking to do to help these little fellas out.
Totally. They are having a rough go of it, and our goal at Bar Hill has always been to connect agriculture to cocktail culture. And so at the beginning, our focus was really on the relationships with these apiarists and beekeepers, making sure that they're getting a correct price, that's a sustainable price for their little farm, for their products. But then, one step beyond that. So now we're taking care of the folks that are taking care of the bees, but how are we actually helping the bees, right? And so bees because of monocropping and bringing bees all over the country to help pollinate the huge monocrop farms and pesticide use and millions of reasons why bees are dying off. And without bees and without pollinators in general, the world would really struggle more than it is already. So what we're doing at Bar Hill to try to help that is, for the last 5 years now, we've launched Bees Knees Week, which started last Friday. It's usually about the last week of September into a little bit of October. And so it ends October 3rd this year. And it's an initiative. It's a sustainability initiative. And it's technically the largest sustainability initiative in the country right now in terms of how many people participate in it. And long story short, anyone can participate by drinking a bee's knees or a riff on a bee's knees, taking a photo, posting it on Instagram or social media and using hashtag Bees Knees Week and tagging at Bar Hill. And then Bar Hill will plant or sponsors the planting of 10 square feet of wild pollinator habitat per post. So every photo you take and you post, it's 10 square feet, and it becomes relatively significant. Last year, we planted about 200,000 square feet of pollinator habitat. And these are working with nonprofit organizations around the country that are basically planting, native flowers, a diverse group of flowers in areas that are either just normally mowed grass or, a plot of dirt or something like that. Sometimes they're working like underneath solar farms or, near roadways and things. And it's amazing. They have like a metric where they're counting. It's a very scientific method where they literally just visually count as many pollinators as they can see in 15 minutes, different types of pollinators. And when it was, we have one of our sites that was just kind of a monoculture place, and it was 15 pollinators in 15 minutes they counted. And then after just 1 year, after one season of the new planting, they counted 175 in the same 15 minutes. So really, really epic impact, and it's it's visible, and countable. So it's really pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that's got to be very gratifying to be able to literally see the difference and have it be that massive.
Totally. And we work, with these organizations that are so wonderfully obsessed with pollinators, and they're in love with them, and to see the look on their faces when they're pointing out some random bumblebee by name and saying that they haven't personally seen that one in 2 or 3 years, and now they have. It's really wonderful.
That's fantastic. And I love this idea of just these fields of wildflowers with just bees everywhere, just buzzing around, happy as clams. Is that just kind of what it is? Is it, I kind of want you to paint me a picture with words. Is it just these like endless fields of wildflowers, or are these like crops that you can also use, or?
No, it's not to use. It's really just for the nature, but so it's planted in a, intelligent way so that the different groups of flowers are flowering at different times, so it's providing the longest type of seasonal habitat basically for the pollination to happen. And it's hitting pollinators. I mean, it's affecting positively pollinators across the board, spiders, butterflies, too, everything. So it's helping bees too, of course, but all across the board. It's been great.
Love
yeah,
that,
that's
man.
great. And it's a great initiative. And you said Bees Knees Week is in its 5th year now?
It's in its 5th year now. And yeah, I urge people to even go follow the hashtag on Instagram and scroll through. You'll see, bars posting from all across the country. It's really exciting. You can take it. It can be a non-alcoholic beverage too. It can be a photo of a pretty flower. It really doesn't matter. Use the hashtag and we'll plant 10 square feet.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, let's take a quick break and hear from our sponsors. We're going to come back and keep talking about Bees Knees Week with Sam Nellis from Caledonia Spirits up in Vermont. Stay tuned.
GigPro is the solution to the restaurant staffing crisis. We're offering businesses the chance to instantly fill their shifts, and food and beverage pros the chance for better wages, more flexibility in their schedules, and benefits. If you're a business, go to gigpro.com, create your free account, and post the shifts you need filled. If you're a hospitality worker, download the GigPro app, create your profile, start applying to shifts, and start getting paid. We know what hospitality businesses and workers need because we spent decades working in the industry ourselves. If you're tired of wasting money on broken recruiting tools or sending your resume into the void, you owe it to yourself to give GigPro a shot. Whether it's a couple shifts or a full-time hire, GigPro lets you 86 the broken staffing status quo and embrace a better future.
And we are back. You were listening to The Speakeasy here on Heritage Radio Network. Today we've got Sam Nellis in from Montpelier, Vermont, talking to us about Bees Knees Week and Bar Hill Spirits. And before we get back into that, I wanted to ask some clarification about a word you used in the first half. Apiarist. This is someone that works with bees. Am I using that right?
Yes, it's an interchangeable word for a beekeeper, basically, someone who's tending to their apiary, which is a bee farm, basically.
Okay, so I've got an idea for you. If you ever open up a experimental cocktail bar in Montpelier, Vermont, you can call it the Apiary. That idea is free. That's yours to use if you want it.
Gotcha. I'd like it a lot.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Souther's on mute right now. It was too funny. He's rolling on the floor laughing.
Yeah,
he had to turn his microphone off. It was too hilarious. But I do want to.
It was an audible and disgruntled groan on my side.
No,
Someone's got to do it.
We toy around because we have a cocktail bar here within the distillery, and we were toying around with naming it kind of its own thing. Right now, it's just the cocktail bar at Bar Hill, but our address is officially 116 Gin Lane, and I'm sure you know the story of William Hogarth the painter and Gin Lane and everything, right? And how he was basically commissioned by the beer industry to make that painting of Gin Lane, which shows
to vilify it, right?
To vilify it. And then Beer Street is another painting he painted, which is people are happy and healthy and loving life. And so when we moved into this location, the driveway actually goes across some train tracks. And so the city said, no problem, but we just have to make it an official street because the city has to be responsible for, train track crossing and keeping it safe and everything. And so they said we can name it. And then, of course, our president head distiller was like, well, can we name it Gin Lane? So it's a little bit, that's a little bit of our name, the Gin Lane Bar.
Well, and I don't know if you know this, but here in Brooklyn, there is a bar called Beer Street. So if you're ever in the neighborhood, you can come in and just be like, you guys think you're so great? And then stick around because it is actually a great bar and have some beer.
I'm sure it's great. I'll just start making up stories that beer makes you, murder your family and hallucinate. Basically absinthe, right?
Only sometimes. But let's talk a little bit about cocktail culture up in Vermont and what y'all are doing and what you as the founder of the Montpelier USBG chapter is sort of what you've done and how that scene has evolved over the years.
Yeah, totally. I'm glad you mentioned it. Thank you. But Vermont has been, we there's some bumper stickers here. Vermont was green before green was cool, because for a long time, Vermont has always been about farmers markets and local food and organic food. And, with the craft beer craze started, over a decade ago, we have some of the best breweries in the world. And so it's very much a beer and food type of town. And it took a while for kind of cocktails to catch on. But I think once folks started understanding cocktails, once folks started understanding that ingredients in cocktails could be more than, vodka and whatever's coming off of the gun syrup, and could also have local ingredients, also have seasonal ingredients, also have different types of classic technique and things, people slowly started to develop an appreciation for that craft along with craft beer and food. My job as a enthusiast, as someone's passionate about this industry for the last 10 years in Vermont, has been to educate as much as possible on cocktails and what that means. And it's come such a long way and it's been great, but every time I open a new place, it's still the same thing. In Montpelier, for example, it's a town of 7,000-8,000 people. A couple places doing some cocktails, but no cocktail bar specific, I guess. And so it's still part of that education. I come from a very kind of classically trained technique. So I like to put as many classics on the menu as possible to get people understanding different things. And then we work with a lot of local farmers and producers. At the Caledonia Spirits Bar Hill is our motto is landcrafted instead of handcrafted. So it's really kind of appreciating what's coming off the land first, and then our job is just really not to mess it up, right? And from the distilling side as well as the bar side. So we've become kind of known to local farmers in the region here that are kind of small, sometimes small time, family, diverse farms that will have 30 or 40 blackberry bushes, nothing major, but along with everything else that's going on their farm, and they'll show up with a pickup truck with a couple bins, and we'll taste some right there in the driveway, and they say, great, you want to buy 20 pounds? And we'll buy 20 pounds and we'll put it on special, a bramble or something. And so it's been fun to be able to connect on small levels with really small town farmers at our bar here to really showcase that. And we'd like to have even educational events where we invite the farmer and do kind of a tasting of the produce, how to turn it into a syrup or something, or how to muddle and use it in a cocktail. Our mission in general also is really like I said before, connecting agriculture and cocktail culture, and we see distillers as being the link between those two. Farmers back in the day had always some access to a distillery, either on their site or a mobile still that would come around. Someone's growing apples. Mm-hmm. The natural thing to do is sell the apples and make apple pie, probably sell that as a value-added product, and eventually make applesauce, apple cider, hard cider, and then that ultimate form of preservation would be distilling that into an apple brandy so that they have something to sustain them over the winter to sell to the community, to trade or whatever. So kind of reminding folks that distillation is still a real part of that agricultural line of that system. And I think people forget that even this day and age. People will ask, where do their tomatoes come from? Where does the beef come from on their hamburger? What brewery is this from local? But sometimes with spirits, they forget that even that vodka or that gin or that whiskey actually comes from, some farmer, which we like to think are the real rock stars in the industry.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Behind the scenes. You're right. It's a curiosity to me that when I would work behind, bars and restaurants, and, everyone wants to know every little minutia bit about everything that's on their plate. Where was this beef raised? Was it grass fed or corn fed? Well, all the thing. And it can be dead of winter outside, and they'll say, yeah, then I'll have a mojito. They don't care where the mint came from. They don't care. It's strange that the consumer doesn't really consider the glass as much as they consider the plate when they think about the farmer. When as you stated, it all comes from the farm. Like everything we consume is a natural product that was harvested by someone.
Absolutely. And we have kind of our experimental line that we call Experiments in Agricultural Rectification. And this is just kind of experimental research products that we put out here just at the distillery in Montpelier. But we're working with local farmers to basically reintroduce these value-added products to their program and to our program and to the community in general, to think about maple syrup a little bit differently than just putting on your pancakes. We distilled some maple syrup into a vodka. It's very similar to how we make the honey, but just with pure maple syrup. And sold that, and people are blown away. And we also think we maybe tasted you on some of this last time, Souther, but we're distilling burdock root, which is
Yep, I remember.
Interesting weed that grows everywhere, and the little spiky balls get stuck in your dog's hair, and people are really annoyed by it. But the roots of those are very starchy, very delicious, really heavily consumed in Asian cuisines. And so we have a farmer here that grows what grows naturally in the region, and so he grows dandelion and burdock. He's growing weeds basically, right. And so we distilled some of that, and that came out incredibly special and earthy and green and really interesting spirit. But yeah, the idea is to kind of educate the community around that
and reconnect them. Just plug that back in. I think it just got unplugged. Talk a little bit more about the bar program itself. At your bar, because you're a distillery in Vermont, I don't know the rules. Are you only allowed to serve what you make?
No, we're very lucky. So as this location was being literally built, at the same time, the Distillers Council and our team here in Vermont were petitioning basically the government and the legislation to allow us to serve more than just what we make. It would have been, would have to serve just sample sizes of just what we make. We wouldn't have been able to mix in, any Amari or vermouths or anything like that if we didn't make them. And we basically tried really hard. And it's something that breweries had to do 15 years ago to petition to open a brew pub to be able to sell their beer that they're making on site directly at the bar that they have on site and not have to go through the third party distributor. We didn't want to have to go through. Vermont is a control state, so the Vermont state is basically the distributor. We didn't want to have to go buy our own product at full price at the liquor store just to use here at the bar. And so luckily we did have enough backing, and the new law was actually signed in front of our still in the distillery here by the governor. And now we have a full program. I mean, we're able to carry cider and beer and wine, and we have all spirits and from all over the world that we mix in. So it's a real kind of complete hospitality program. A little bit of food too, more kind of snacks and substantial snacks. And it's a big location. Total, we've done full, like the concert we did a few days ago was about 400 people total.
What?
We have two, because we have outside now too, and we've actually just built a second little bar down the hallway for events specifically. And it was a little bit of our COVID pivot in a way. We were trying to create this indoor-outdoor space, and a pretty cool sustainability initiative there too was in the distillation process. There's a ton of heat, heating of liquids and cooling of liquids and excess heat, etc. And so trying to close that loop and collecting that excess heat in what we call our heat battery tank. And then it's actually piped underneath the pavers of our back patio. So it's a natural kind of radiant heat coming from the floor. That's all reclaimed heat. It's no excess energy or anything like that. It's actually the same system that's sending hot water to the bar is directly coming from the distillery. When we first opened here, we didn't know quite how busy we would be, and we were very busy, and we had a little tiny boiler, and we were running out of hot water within like 2 hours of the shift. And and you guys probably know this. It's the worst when you're trying to clean dishes and glasses in cold water, and it's not sanitary and everything. And so we were committed, instead of just adding another boiler, to figuring out how to capture some of the heat coming from the distillery, which is a good 100 yards away from the actual bar. So piping that all the way there was a challenge, and it wasn't cheap. But now I have the hottest water I've ever worked with behind a bar, and as much of it as I've ever wanted.
Well, plus if you're running it under the pavers outside, you're not having to shovel in the winter.
Exactly.
Right? It just keeps it nice and neat looking, like the snow doesn't collect on your pavers.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
And so we're able, when we built this distillery, the last distillery we were in was a retrofitted kind of storage area, kind of looked like a barn that was small. And so we just did what we could. And then when we moved in, when you're building from scratch, you have all of a sudden a huge opportunity to think way more about recycling and sustainability and stuff. And we're actually using 83% less water per bottle of gin that we make than we were before. And solar panels everywhere, and all these sorts of initiatives are very cool. All of the stillage, the waste, the spent juniper, and all of that goes to a local biodigester to create energy for the community.
That's incredible.
I love that. And I love that it's that you've sort of moved out of your little as you move out of the starter distillery that you were in, the one that everyone kind of I feel like, unless you have a huge amount of startup capital behind you, it's a little bit of sort of like cobbling things together and figuring things out. And then that gives you like a blueprint and the eyes that you need to see, oh, wait, we don't need a boiler. We can just run this hot water from our coolant into into the hot water that we're using for the bar, and just not let that heat go to waste and just reuse that. That's incredible. I also can't let you go without talking about, because I fucking love this stuff without talking about Tomcat. Talk to me a little bit about how that recipe came to be and what makes it, it's probably the only gin that I will just reach for and just like pour over the rocks and just drink totally happily. Like I absolutely love it. Talk to me about where that comes from.
Awesome, Greg. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, Tomcat is our barrel aged gin. So it's the same gin as the Bar Hill gin with that small amount of raw honey and juniper in it, of course. And then we're aging it in a new American white oak barrel. So, and it's charred. So I like to tell folks, it's the same barrel you would use to make a bourbon, but it's not a used bourbon barrel. And we never use them more than once. We age for about 6 to 10 months, depending on the size of the barrels, and then they're blended, for consistency. But what's produced out of that is a very bourbon-like gin, because it's very dark, it's very rich, tons of oak flavor, tons of vanilla, tons of caramel, that nice char, a little bit of kind of a cedar smell, and in combination with the spice from the juniper and the richness of the honey. You said it. People love to drink it just on the rocks. We make old fashions with it, Manhattans, and it makes for a beautiful winter Negroni or Boulevardier, blend, whatever you want to call it. And that came about. They had ordered. This is a few years now, but they had ordered some barrels because we've been slowly making whiskey this whole time as well. But that's just been aging, and we're not rushing it. But some barrels came in and the whiskey wasn't going to be ready in time to fill the barrels. The barrels were going to dry out. They didn't quite know what to do. They had just made a batch of gin that wasn't 100% up to their likings to be Bar Hill gin. So like, okay, we'll throw it in these barrels and kind of see what happens. And that was like the happy, experiment when you have such a small distillery, when you're not trying to pour anything down the drain, you're trying to really pinch your pennies and save. It's what is it? It's like it's necessity is the father of invention or something.
Sure, and when you're that small, you can just be nimble.
Exactly. Like, I don't know, let's just do
correct
this.
or change direction at will, basically.
And what came out is really a category on its own. It's a barrel aged gin, and it's not just a slightly aged version or like a little slightly reserved version of our regular gin. It's really a standalone product. I mean, it hits very differently in cocktails. It's different folks like it differently, but it's kind of people ask me what's your favorite, and it's I can't even compare them. There's a time and place for both, for sure. And so we'll make a bee's knees with the Tomcat, and we'll call it a cat's pajamas, of course.
Nice.
And so that also counts towards the Bee's Knees Week initiative.
I know. I love that gin, and I love that cocktail. Like you were talking earlier about, like how you like to, when you write menus, make sure that there's some classics on there. And that's one of the things I love about a Bee's Knees, is that it is a classic. It's not nearly as well known as, your Manhattans or your old fashions, or even something like an Aviation or a Last Word, like other up gin based sours. It doesn't nearly have the same press, but it's ruthlessly simple to make. And I've never put one in front of someone and had them be like, it's not for me. Like, it's just such a lovely drink. So I love what y'all are doing for the bees, and I love what you're doing for the Bee's Knees.
Totally. They understand the 3 ingredients on the menu, which is nice, compared to a lot of menus where they have some obscure Amari or whatever. But it's just a little different, it's honey instead of regular sugar. And it works really well. Like you said, invented around the beginning of Prohibition, but in France by a guy named Frank Myers, who had worked in the States a little bit. He was Austrian born, and he was at the Ritz hotel in Hotel Bar in Paris. It still exists. They changed the name of the bar to the Hemingway bar. I feel like there's like 200 bars around the world that claim Hemingway was a big drinker there, which I wouldn't put it past him. I do think it's possible, but they made a Bee's Knees, and I have copies of some of the original books that first published it, and it's super simple and super delicious. And at the time, it's slang for just the best. And so it obviously works really well with Bar Hill Gin, and it works really well for folks to have at bars as well as at home, because it's just a tiny little prep work, which is making your honey syrup. We like to do 2 parts honey, 1 part water. I like to remind folks to please not bring it to a full boil or even a simmer. Just really heat it slowly, as less is more when heating it, to preserve as much flavors from the honey as possible. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so folks are able to make it at home too, which is so nice.
Yeah, and the initiative and getting so many people involved, and now 5 years into it and planting so many habitats for pollinators is, I think it's incredible work that you're out there doing. It's really great.
Thanks. Yeah, and just to remind folks, we're in the middle of Bee's Knees Week, so if you're listening, post a photo of a Bee's Knees or a cocktail or really anything you'd like, and use the hashtag Bee's Knees Week and tag Bar Hill at Bar Hill Gin, and with 2 R's in bar, and Bar Hill will plant 10 square feet of pollinator habitat to help the bees.
Yeah, that's incredible. We'll also make sure that's in the show notes for you. And we can follow along with Bar Hill at Bar Hill, right? BARRHILL. That's correct?
At Bar Hill Gin, yeah.
At Bar Hill Gin. Okay, add the gin on there. Well, thanks so much for spending some time with us, Sam, and talking to us about preserving the bees and making delicious gins up in Montpelier, Vermont. Anything else you want to plug before we wrap it up?
No, I was just going to say we're open here 7 days a week at the distillery. We do tours, we do classes. So, Vermont's a beautiful place to visit any time of year. Please, the welcome is for the 2 of you too to come visit, and we'd love to host you.
Thank you. I will come visit 7 days a week, as establishments should be open if they want to draw in crowds and accolades. I will absolutely take you up on that required. Offer. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, we're going to jump right up there.
And we do have flatbreads.
Overdue for a visit to Montpelier. I haven't been back there since I left many, many years ago. So
I think you'd really enjoy it. It's come a long way.
Yeah, it's beautiful up there. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode of The Speakeasy. Tune in to Heritage Radio Network for many more shows just like this one. Go to heritageradionetwork.org and click on the beating heart to donate to keep shows like this and many others on the air. And that's it, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. Until next week, cheers.
Cheers. Save the bees.
So you don't charm the devil with your rock.
The Speakeasy is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food and drink radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.